2015. I remember that one. Pacquiao is now planning to run for president in his native Philippines this upcoming May. But Shannon, how will you remember Manny as a boxer?
Historically great fighter.
Good for you.
The only fighter to win 8 world titles. I mean, Skip, he started out boxing, he was 106 pounds, won a title at, I think, 112, and went all the way up to
108 first.
Went all the way up to 154.
It's impossible. It's just...
I don't believe, I feel very comfortable and said I don't believe we'll ever see that again, Skip.
We'll never see it again.
And it wasn't like he was fighting bums. When you go back and look at Marco Antonio Barrera and Eric Morales and Oscar Larios and De La Hoya and Hatton and Cotto, Margarita, Mosley, Timothy Bradley, Mayweather, Skip. I mean, what do you got to say? He was a champion in 4 different decades.
Yep.
Fighter of the year. First ballot Hall of Fame. He's great. He fought everybody. Whenever. The only thing that I hate is that he and Mayweather didn't get together 5 years sooner. That's all I hate, Skip. That's all I hate. Other than that, I can find nothing.
That's my biggest regret all time as a boxing fan.
I can find nothing, and you can put him up there with anybody from Armstrong to Willie Pep, any of the greats you want us mentioned. You got to mention Manny Pacquiao.
As you know, I have long been a much bigger Pacquiao fan than you have been because we got divided over Mayweather-Pacquiao, and so you had to go with your guy, and I had to stick with mine. And yet, what I've always loved so much about Manny Pacquiao, why I gravitated to him from the start was he fought.
Yes.
He fought anybody, anytime, any place. He wasn't calculated about it. He just fought because that's what he was. He was a fighter by nature. He grew up I'm talking dirt poor in the Philippines as just a street urchin, just scratching and clawing for literally his next meal.
Correct.
He fought literally to eat, to stay alive.
Correct.
And he's not proud of some of the things he did because he was, it was a rough upbringing.
Right.
But he did have what I believe was a legit spiritual conversion. And this man is a good man. In fact, he's seen as a great man in the Philippines to the point that that little street urchin, that little tiny guy, is running for president. And I don't know his chances because I don't know Filipino politics.
Well, let's just hope Duarte doesn't do anything.
Okay.
I guess he's like, well, I'm going to be the vice president because normally you have term limits, but...
Okay. So the point is that it came down to Manny versus your man. And your man, Money Mayweather, was the greatest defensive fighter ever, and it ain't even close. He was all duck and dodge. Nobody could duck and dodge the way Floyd could. And yet it was all offense on Manny's part because he just went at everybody as hard as he could go at him. He wasn't a poor defensive fighter. He just was built for offense. He was on the attack.
And it cost him against Juan Marquez.
Okay, but that was the 4th time he had to fight him. He's like, I'm trying to fight anybody. Okay, I'll fight him again. 4 times I'm going to fight him.
But the thing was, Skip, he's winning the fight. I mean, he's dominating the fight. And then Marquez timed him.
It's the end of the 6th round. And I just think he got a little bored because he'd beaten him 3 times. And all of a sudden, he's sleepwalking and then he's out cold. Right?
Yep.
Okay, so that happened, and there were some other glitches along the way. But that one night in May in Las Vegas, I just, even at their advanced ages, I wanted to see them fight. And you know what I believe? That Manny somehow tore his rotator cuff
in the lead up
sparring about 3 weeks out, according to the great Freddie Roach, who I know. And well, all I know is that Manny had to have surgery the day after the fight. So I believe he was handicapped in that fight. I still believe he won the fight because he pressed the action. And yet, Floyd is great, but Floyd is calculated. He carefully chose each opponent. And Manny's just like reckless, like, oh, you want to fight? Let's fight. I'll fight you. He fought Keith Thurman. Ernestine and I were there at ringside in Las Vegas. He was almost 41 years of age. And he flat beat Keith Thurman fair and square. Trust me, he won that fight. It was legit. And then he wanted Spence Jr., as you know, and he winds up 11 days out with a different opponent who was just better than he was.
Right.
And Manny said, I didn't have time to prep. Manny is high IQ, and he hadn't figured out a way.
And that's the thing, Skip. When you preparing, Skip, just imagine, I watch film. Let's just say for the sake of argument, the Super Bowl, I can give it in terms, people. I'm getting ready to play an opponent. Now, I'm studying all the tape on this guy. That's the team I'm looking at. Then all of a sudden, at the last second, they say, nah, you're not playing that team. You playing this team who I haven't studied.
And Ugas is talented.
Yes.
And he's physical, and he's just bigger than me.
Yes. And the thing is, Skip, with anything great, getting in is the easy part. It's knowing when to get out that's hard. And when you're great, Manny probably stayed a year or two longer than what he should have.
Yeah. So it occasionally got ugly between the Mayweather and Pacquiao camps, and they accused him of PEDs because nobody could believe that he went from 108 up to 154. It's like, how can you do that? So Floyd's saying, well, it's got to be, right?
And when he fought at 154, Skip, remind you now, he only weighed 144. So he was basically 10 pounds, basically under the weight. But he wiped it out.
Man.
He wiped it out. He wiped the divisions out.
He did. And Timothy Bradley got him, and he just turned right around and said, and he didn't really get him because I thought Manny just flat out got robbed in that first fight.
I did too.
And he turned right around and said, I'll take him again. And he went right back and got on that horse and rode it and beat him, right?
Yeah,
so,
I don't believe the boxers, Skip, the boxers are not going to stay. Manny is an old school boxer. Where they used to, Skip, you remember like Durant and all those guys, they guys had 70, 80, 90 fights. Pacquiao had a number of fights. I don't know if we're going to see boxers get to that 60, 70 fight total anymore like they used to. Old fighters used to get to 100 fights, get to 200 fights.
Yeah.
I don't believe we'll see that anymore, Skip, because like you said, now everybody wants to be Floyd. I love Floyd. Floyd is Floyd, you make the case that he's the greatest boxer. But everybody wants to be Floyd and protect that. Oh, so I'm going to pick a guy that's not dangerous. And why would I pick somebody that can beat me, Skip, for $18 million if I can fight a guy I know I can beat for $15 million?
That's Floyd. That's Money Mayweather.
So
I agree.
Now, hold on, Skip. I'm going to have to disagree with you. Coming up, Floyd destroyed everybody that they put in front of him. You go back and look at his resume. Now, if you want to say once he got to, say, 30-0 or whatever he ended up at, you want to say, okay, he want to protect that. But early on, once he turned pro, after he got robbed in the Olympics, but I'm not so sure, Skip, even if they had fought 5 years earlier, he couldn't beat Floyd.
Yeah.
On his best day, he couldn't beat Floyd.
But even selected Canelo when he was still just a baby.
The Canelo wanted to fight.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do Canelo like this, but he asked for it.
But Mayweather knew he's just a pup. You know, I can just dance rings around him, which he did. He took him to school.
And what, Skip, you're in the animal kingdom.
Yeah.
If the pup gets out of line and lashes out at the mom of the day, what do? They bite him, put him right. I got to let you know who the boss is.
Yep.
So Canelo wanted this. Mayweather had to let him know this is not what you want.
Okay, after Canelo, he's just picking and choosing. These are cakewalk fights.
But it wasn't nobody. It was Skip. At that point in time, once he got past Canelo, who out there could beat him? Nobody could beat him.
Nobody.
In his prime, if you take everybody in their prime when he was fighting, couldn't nobody beat Floyd.
So to your point, if you could have just turned back the clock 5 years, you would have the greatest offensive fighter at that weight against the greatest defensive fighter at any weight.
Right.
Seriously. Like Floyd, you want to talk about gift of just being able to maneuver around any punch. You just couldn't touch him. You couldn't touch him.
And the thing was, he had dynamite in his hands now. People keep saying he was a defensive fighter, and yeah, he is. But don't let him fool you. Them counter punches coming back hard.
Floyd, he could punch.
Yeah, and that was different between him and Sweet Pea. Now, I can make a case Sweet Pea defense was better than Money, but he didn't have the offensive arsenal that Floyd had. Floyd offensive arsenal, combined with his defense, that's why I'm saying, Skip, even if they fought 5 years earlier, Pacquiao can't touch him. Couldn't touch him.
He would have touched him. And if he had touched him, he would have hurt him.
The thing that you have to admire most about Floyd, Skip, is that he never let you get him out of what he wanted to do. He says, I'm gonna make you come to me because you want to give the fight. And the fans are gonna watch because they want to see me lose. And you walk right into his trap. You come to him, you shoot, pop, pop. He back up out of there. He in that Philly shuffle, the Philly roll, go roll the shoulder, and gonna catch you with something on the way in. That's just the way he fought. And he never got out of that.
Manny Pacquiao at 25, 6, 7, and 8. You want to talk about explosion?
Oh, he was quick.
You want to talk about attack?
Yeah, but he coming in, Skip. You already know you're going to get off 500 punches. So you already know that. You got to.
But what he did to Ricky Hatton that night was just like, what?
Yeah, he walked through Hatton.
Just over.
De La Hoya, Cotto, Margarita, Barrera. He walked through them all. He walked through them.
He wouldn't have walked through Floyd, but he would have beaten him.
They would have beat Floyd.
Yep.
No, ain't nobody beating Floyd. I mean, maybe, I don't even know if Prime Sugar Ray. Now, maybe if you go back Prime Sugar Ray, maybe we talk about something. We can have a conversation.
Ray would have figured something.
We just talk about something.
Yep.
If you want to go back, maybe Tommy Hearns would have been a great fight. I don't know, Chavez. But in his era, ain't nobody seeing Floyd. Never.
Well, all I got to say is congratulations, Manny Pacquiao.
I mean, you know, like even all these fighters that he fought, what's his claim to fame? L to Mayweather. That's how great Mayweather is. Everybody claimed to fame.
With a torn rotator cuff?
We told
with one hand tied behind his back?
Guess what else got tore up? His tail.
Well, torn up.
Yeah, it did. Tore him up.
They just danced all night.
Boop. Come in there and catch. Hey, I got to take this back out with you.
Really?
Take this back out with you. You going back out? Take this with you.
Surgery the next day.
Yeah.
I just keep thinking about how
Had
nice
his foot
he was
removed.
when
Mayweather
he
foot
joined
removed from
us
his
on
butt.
the show, too. Like, his personality was just so kind person, and then just an absolute beast when fighting. He was just really cool to meet, and I wish him all the best in his next journey as hopefully president, guys.
Thank you for watching. Well, if you enjoyed that clip, make sure you click somewhere around here and subscribe. From fight highlights to exclusive interviews, we have got everything you need as a boxing fan right here on PBC on Fox.